All right, hello and welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. My name is Scott. I'm joined by the Luchador himself, looking at fixing his mask as well, for this recap and review of WWE Fastlane. A very exciting show. A lot of things to talk about. We're going to break them down one by one throughout this stream right here. Some kind of teases for turns, some dissension in factions, some new members. Title changes, successful title defenses as well. We're going to break it all down right after this.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
You're muted. Got it. There we go.
You couldn't hear me?
No. Well, I don't know if listeners could. I can hear you.
All right. Well, at least you can now, and I can hear you. Let's get going. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the channel. It's been a kind of interesting 24 hours. Last night we had our build-up show, and I'm still feeling the effects of streaming all night and watching the show. We were talking as we just were about to set up for this stream, weren't we, Rob? Saying it feels like an early morning, but of course it's just gone 1 in the afternoon here in the UK. But that's what happens when you get older and you stay up for a PLE in British summertime. Clocks. I don't know what I'm saying there. See, I am very tired. All right, let's talk about wrestling. That's what we're here to do, mate. It was a pretty good show. Before we dive into the matches one by one, kind of first initial kind of thoughts on the PLE as a whole.
I really enjoyed it, man. I felt like there was a couple of dead spots, but I feel like you're going to get that with every PLE, no matter what the company. There's always a match that kind of it's just there for the sake of it fills a gap, you know. But that doesn't mean they didn't deliver. But yeah, the pacing of the show was great. I really enjoyed it. I do have a few things that we'll talk about as we get on, match by match at least. But it was so good. So many twists and turns. Things are happening. Things I didn't expect to happen happened. But yeah, man, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same, and I think that kind of comment there of things you didn't expect to happen is probably a good way to start. And the beginning of the show was a good way to start, of course, with the first match on the card being the tag team title match between, at the time, defending champions, the Judgment Day, represented by Damian Priest and Finn Bálor, going up against Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. And there was a lot of talk, weren't there, Rob, before the show, on the build-up, on our predictions and preview stream as well, about this kind of weird scenario of having one Uso have more titles than the other. Well, we're here, and I guess we've got to get the best out of it now. They're somewhat stricken while the iron was hot, and kind of using the momentum behind Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes, which I do understand. I worry about the Judgment Day scenario, but of course we'll play into that, going forward as far as kind of the JD, interference and costing them the match essentially. But then also, like as you said the other day, this could lead to some sort of issue between the Usos and one having more than the other and all that kind of stuff as well. But let's get into the match overall. It was a very interesting start to the show, high pace, high energy, and all that kind of stuff. They mentioned Money in the Bank straight away, which made me go, "Oh, it's not cashing in later tonight." So that was frustrating. And then they have the kind of clip later on, of course, where Damian's being convinced not to do it again. We'll touch on that in a bit. Another interesting thing they mentioned was the Bullet Club. We mentioned them last night in a different kind of way. But yeah, it was two Bullet Club former leaders facing off against each other. Wild that they did that. I know they've done it sparingly, and I know they've kind of had their own kind of unofficial Bullet Club with the OC over the years as well. But, I mean, Bullet Club not in name, essentially. But at a time in AEW, you literally are using the Bullet Club name. It is quite interesting to hear it used on WWE broadcast. But anyway, interesting start there. Also, a few kind of interesting things I picked up on throughout the match as far as maybe hints towards certain people. As far as The Rock, we had the old laying the smackdown from Jey Uso. And of course, it was just shenanigans pretty much throughout, especially towards the end, where Dom and Rhea tried to help. Cody would kick out. JD McDonough would help. Rhea would be knocking people with Money in the Bank briefcase. JD would try to do the same. And of course, would accidentally hit Damian Priest, which leads to him going through the announce table or bouncing off of it, at least thanks to Cody Rhodes. And then an incredible way to finish it with a sort of crossroads /1D scenario. So that was a quite fun way to pick up the victory as well. What are your thoughts on kind of those big talking points throughout this opener match, mate?
This was such a great opener. I mean, we discussed if you're not going on last, I always think if you're not going on last, you need to go first, because that's the thing that gets the show kicking off. And it sets the bar for what everyone else has got to do next. Probably my favorite match of the night. It has to be. But I'm not against that. I mean, we spoke about the Uso thing. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's to do with one Uso having a title reign more, a tag title reign more than the other one. We discussed that at length twice now, kind of in the build-up last night and the predictions the week before. So go back and check them out. My only criticism, and I don't know if you picked up on it, is Damian Priest and Finn Balor swapped in the ring, and there was no official tag. The ref didn't. When a ref does the acknowledgement and then does the hand for the tag sign, that doesn't happen.
Did they tag though?
Yeah.
Oh, so they did tag, but the ref didn't acknowledge.
So it was the moment where Priest done something to Cody when Cody was on the corner. Jey Uso was in. He intimidated Cody and then walked over, and then him and Finn swapped. So there wasn't, and they tagged. But obviously, the ref didn't see it. So technically, Finn should have been out of the ring again. I guess the ref, if you go by the ref, should acknowledge every tag. I think it was probably just a slip up, and they're not gonna. But yeah, I mean, they could use. I mean, it could be used, but it's just something that I picked up on. I was thinking, is that they're like the get out clause, the scapegoat, and something like that. So that'll be interesting. But man, I just love it. The everything about it was so good. The JD McDonough stuff, and then when they're backstage later on, which we'll talk about with Priest. I did have a theory on that, so we'll discuss that when we get there. It was just good, man. It was so chaotic, and this is what you want from when something's messy and you make it messier, but it kind of ties everything up at the same time. They really did tidy some stuff up. I'm not sure if you watched the conference after.
I did, I loved it.
Man, I don't know what Jay was on, but he just
it was so funny. I like that Triple H reacted well to it by saying yeet as soon as he sat down. But I am a bit concerned that maybe that didn't go down too well in some circles. But I thought it was really entertaining. And,
I did. But I think
the whole conference was pretty cool. So
I think we're kind of getting we know what Jey Uso's like, but we've only ever seen Jey Uso with Jimmy and the bloodline, and So now he's kind of got this time on his own to kind of shine through and be a main event. I think they're really allowing him just to play up
who he is,
that character a bit more. But it does seem like Cody's having to try and keep him calm. But Cody kept laughing. So I don't know how spontaneous things were, but overall, I really enjoyed it. The fact that they're tag champions, it's a bittersweet because I like the idea of it happening. It's really cool. But at the same time, the thing we discussed about one Uso having another title reign more, so it kind of changes their, I guess, their legacy as not in a bad way, but do you know what I mean?
Somewhat in a bad way, because like you said last night, with the whole kind of you look to someone like the Dudley Boys, But then again, no, saying that,
The
surely
Dudleys, yeah, because
Dudley-
Bubba and Spike, wasn't it?
yeah, Bubba and Spike. So I guess they don't mention it. Oh, okay. Well, so it's interesting, but yeah, it does feel somewhat of a shame. But again, if we're talking about at the moment what's going on with these characters right now, I do like it. Like, it's all right in that sense. But record book and long term, tricky situation. But yeah, I am a fan of Cody and Jey working together, and like you say, this kind of opportunity to give Cody the limelight, and Jey, I should say, the limelight. And yeah, he's been solo before. He's been main event Jey Uso when he was facing off against Roman the first time round and against the Bloodline this time. But you're right, he's still been in and around the Bloodline storyline. So seeing him somewhere else, kind of bouncing off, and yes, now he's in a tag team again. He's a tag champ. So it's weird to say, he's on his own, but he kind of still is, because he is kind of. He's working off of new people. He's working off of Cody as the tag team. So as much as it kind of usually when you get these two solo stars put together, you think, they're just lumped as a tag team. They still feel very separate, and with these two. So it is an interesting kind of dynamic there, and looking forward to seeing where we go in the future with this one as well. But yeah, really enjoyed the match. Overall, I think I'll make you right, man. I think it probably was match of the night. It was a really good opener, and one that I was worried about. But when it kind of came to an end as far as who actually walked out with the title, I'm all right with it. I'm all right with it in the end. But we'll see where we go from here. Yeah. We'll leave it at that. I think it was a great opener to the show. Now, the next thing that happens on the show is our LWO situation, where they are looking for the third man. Now, I'm not talking Bash at the Beach and the NWO, of course. I'm talking Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio looking for a friend, because although there's 5 in that graphic, there was only 2 in the ring. And it started that way, Rob, 3-on-2. And, the Street Profits and Lashley matching gear. I like that. That was quite cool to see. And then pretty much, they're taking over. And, of course, it kind of comes to a crescendo when Carlito arrives on the scene. Great to see Carlito back. Of course, we were speculating this last night on the build-up show. If you haven't watched our build-ups before, that's the place to be on the night of PLE as far as leading into it. We talk about all the latest news and rumors. And, of course, Carlito was a big one. And I'm glad it happened. What I'm not happy about, though, is the changing of his theme song. I think any return is key when you have that instant recognizable moment. Yes, they brought up the Carlito graphic around the ring, so you knew exactly who it was. But that is an iconic theme song, number 1. Number 2, he came back with that song just a few months ago, and the pop was unreal. Yes, it was in Puerto Rico, and that's his kind of home turf, of course. But it meant so much more. And this one was never going to be as big of a jump, because we've already seen him a few months ago, and it went in his home country of Puerto Rico, but it was still a big reaction, and I think it could have been a little bit better if we had the theme song. Very annoyed that we've moved away from that theme. I don't get WWE's obsession with kind of fixing something that isn't broken. Again, a big part of a return is that recognizable theme. Other than that, thoroughly enjoyed the return of Carlito. Very excited to see what it does going forward. I know there were rumors that he was going to sign the first time round that he come back at the Royal Rumble. Didn't quite happen. There were rumors he even signed a few months ago, and that he's kind of been waiting for a moment. Well, this was a good moment to bring him in, Rob. What are your thoughts on this match and the return and presentation of Carlito Caribbean Cool?
No, I agree with what you said. It should have been. I spit in the faces of people who don't. Do you know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. Just hearing that would have been massive. The fact that they had his graphics and great, but if you hear that, it's like the Undertaker gong. You hear that, you think, Austin's last shout.
Might not be on the same level, but yeah, no, it is.
If you recognise who it is, it's a specific thing. And I just think they really missed out on that opportunity. However, that being said, I really enjoyed it. The backstabber that he done at the end looked incredible. Then, when you get the Mortal Kombat visual on Twitter, people already put up the backstabber into the Mortal Kombat break, that back break. Love seeing that. That's always good to see. Street Profits and Lashley look really good together, matching gear, as you said. I'm not sure about the music, as in
using
Why would
it.
the
So
Profits?
yeah, if anyone should change theme, it might be the Street Profits.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
because that's very tied in with their babyface persona.
Yeah, and that was my concern. Like the idea of them coming out, which is good, and then Lashley them standing basically on guard, and then Lashley comes out. I like that, but I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I just that in the beginning of Lashley's music when they're doing all the graphics and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the bit.
That's where they should come out, and then Lashley comes out after. It just, I think if they need to if they want to get rid of this babyface Street Profits thing, they need to drop that music because
that's a great point. Because I was thinking, how do you do it? Because you can't just have Lashley's music play. But I forgot Lashley's got an intro to his music.
Yeah.
That is the perfect scenario. Why have they not done that? I mean,
don't know.
Very strange. But again, sticking with theme songs and stuff like that, going back to the Carlito thing, I think at least we got it a few months ago. And that moment will, it was the bigger pop anyway, and it was always got to be. But at least we had it there. But again, WWE, what are you doing? Do you think he's fully back in the LWO now? Or is he just kind of back on the roster? Or is it another example of a one-time thing and he's gone tomorrow?
I don't know. So this is the thing. I think no matter whoever it was that come out was going to get a pop. And I don't want this to be disrespectful, but if it was Dragon Lee, I don't think it would have been as loud.
No.
Unless Ray was like, oh, this is who we're getting, and like welcomes him and does like a big build up. Because that way it would have been Ray giving a seal of approval. But the fact that it was Carlito, I'm happy with that. Is it a one-time thing? I don't know. I hope not, because that would be great for him to work with a lot of the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of young blood there that he probably hasn't had the time to meet properly, lock up with, roll around in a mat with. And man, he's like a second generation wrestler, so the knowledge that he probably has can be passed on. So that's massive. That's always good. But I don't know where it goes from there. I would like to see more, but the thing is, Carlito was always really more of a heel.
Yeah.
So now he's kind of come back as this. Do you put him in the legend box, because of the way he's come back? If he's coming back in that way, then what do you do with him?
Yeah, you're right, because they don't usually turn him heel. I mean, we've been ranting and raving.
Well, we had that with Trish.
About exactly that, doing it for Trish. But I mean, Carlito says his career, most of it was as a heel. So, and he's a great heel. So we'll see. Maybe that's where we do go. Maybe he's the one that starts splitting up the LWO or something like that. But I reckon he probably is going to be in and around the LWO for a bit. And of course, after that, we eventually will get the split. But as I said yesterday, they're selling too much merch to do anything about it now. The one that everybody has their eyes on, though, is, of course, Santos Escobar. A little bit of dissension, it would seem, on the pre-show as well, as far as kind of being a bit frustrated with Ray. But hey, he's not like that in real life, guys. He's a lovely fella, and we encourage you to check out our interview with him on this very channel here. But what we're going to do now is we are going to head into the third, well, not the third match of the night, but the next segment that's shown after this, at least before the next match, is a replay of what happens on the kickoff, and that is the arrival on WWE programming of Jade Cargill. An interesting way to kind of show her. To me, it made me go, oh, she's definitely showing up on the show then. She's not just here for the pre-show. It was still good. And again, like we said the other day on the build-up and the predictions the other day as well, bring her in and kind of making it look like a big deal. Even that social clip of her walking into the PC was huge. Great presentation. And they're doing the same thing here. And on the press conference after the show, Triple H basically said what we said last night of kind of when she's ready, when we think she's ready, we'll do it. But that's not kind of a diss or anything like that. She's got massive star potential, but there are a few things I guess they want to tweak and kind of make sure she's kind of got ironed out before she does get onto TV. Now, I like the idea that we talked about last night, the kind of NXT presentation where she is sitting at ringside. And I really thought we were going to get that. But I guess the thing is that would have kind of pushed it too far ahead. So it feels like we are going to be drip fed it, as we were kind of talking about last night as well, that maybe she's just going to kind of pop in and out. If you do want to see our thoughts on this in more detail, I do encourage you to check out, I know again, prediction sounds weird to plug at this point, but predictions for the show where we do talk about, of course, around the women's title match and also more so on the build-up show. So if you haven't already, check those pieces of content out for our thoughts more in depth. But just briefly, now that we've had this kind of next bit of progression in the Jade Cargill saga. What are your thoughts on what we saw on Fastlane and the kind of coming weeks?
Look, as we said last night, I love the fact that we're getting Jade in the company. The build up, everything they've done, they've made it like a big deal, and I think it's incredible. But I don't agree with her rolling up in a car and doing nothing. Okay, she's there in the building. So what? So was all the other people attending? Like, that either meant something or it didn't. And I'm like, they should have done like a little, like a vignette, something. It doesn't have to be loads, but it could, or they even could have done replayed the video of her walking back into the PC set now, like signing and building it up, making this big hype.
Yeah,
she is coming. Like,
I mean, I guess the argument is that is what they did, but I think it is weird that it was on the pre-show and just replayed, and then, like you say, that they don't do anything else with it. I guess the argument they would maybe have is that they don't, because I thought, oh, maybe interview her on the ramp or something like that, but maybe they don't want her in front of fans until the big moment.
Then why show her?
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? It is hard to tell because it's kind of unprecedented in some ways. It's most similar to the NXT stuff again that we mentioned last night, but it's not quite that either. So hey, I'm all up for trying something new and kind of put focus on presentation and get the best out of things. So hopefully it does work out. I mean, I'm sure that initial kind of feud is one that everybody's excited about, and again, we mentioned last night the possibility of it being Charlotte Flair. Of course, it wouldn't end up being Charlotte that came out with the title on this one. That's where we thought we could see it going. If Cargill was getting involved now, but again, we've also said maybe it's Crown Jewel, maybe it's Survivor Series, and I do think the best scenario for that is going 1-on-1 versus Charlotte Flair. But for the time being, I'm very happy to say that Iyo Sky is still your WWE Women's Champion. Of course, defended successfully against Asuka, and again, as I mentioned just a moment ago, Charlotte Flair also unable to take that title away from her as well. Now, we saw some big moments in this match as well, and a very appreciative crowd. It felt a bit flat for me at times, but then later on, the fans started, doing the old "this is awesome" chant and stuff like that. I think the biggest moments in this was the mist and there nearly being a pin after it. I loved the cartwheel thing into a double clothesline that we saw as well. Kind of just trying new things there for Charlotte. And just some really good moments. What are some of your favorites from this one?
The finish, amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing. Like, I know it could have looked better without Bayley. Because that would have been, I don't know. I think the idea of Bayley not being there would have been great. I know they're playing off on it, but that finish with Asuka in the figure eight and then the moonsault, and the visual with her just landing, and then you only see what happened in the replay, and then do you know what I mean? Like, that would have been played so well because you'll be like, what happened? Like,
where's she come from?
But yeah, I mean, like, both moonsaults, for the one from Iyo and the one from Flair, that was good. Yeah. They seemed a little clunky at times. I don't know if the night got the better of them, but there was a couple of moments where, I don't know, there was the, what did Jericho used to call it? The code breaker from the top rope.
Yeah. A slight timing issue. Yeah, I think even on, or is it the same one when Asuka, I think Charlotte was holding Iyo, I think it was, and Asuka did it or something like that. There's some double team. Again, good stuff, but slight missteps and stuff like that, but nothing major. I think it's still come across really well. And again, the fans are very appreciative of the match as well. I thought it was a good match. It's always hard to kind of, once you start juggling multiple people in a match, it's hard to kind of keep on top of timing and stuff like that. But that being said, I still think it was a really good match and the right decision as well. Iyo winning, like you say, it did have that kind of messy kind of side of it of Bayley getting involved and stuff like that. But of course, that is just playing into the whole story of, is Bayley costing? Is, she can actually help? A Jade McDonough situation almost with the Judgment Day as well. But of course, different scenario. But as far as, can she kind of continue to impress who she's trying to impress in Iyo? She's trying to convince Iyo that I'm still on your side. And it looked like a problem, a bit of dissension between the two. And as the commentators rightly pointed out, but Iyo is kind of glad now she stuck around and helped. It did it work in their favor. Still an interesting one, of course, because Iyo still feels like a babyface in some ways, but she's still very much in this heel faction. And yeah, they just work really well together. As much as I think anytime you see this kind of threat, you know, it was Street Profits a few months ago, LWO we've just been talking about as well, of like someone's going to turn. Like it's easy to kind of get lost in that and think we need it now. But like, yeah, like we know turns happen in wrestling, but we should probably just enjoy what we got at the moment. You know, we talked a few months ago about Shield and how little they're actually together for in the WWE. It's wild when you really step back and think about it. So let's enjoy what we've got with Damage Control. They looked like they were going to be the biggest thing in WWE at one point. Then they looked like they were completely forgotten about, and then they're kind of somewhere in the middle. So it's been an interesting run for Damage Control, but let's hope it continues to kind of do the right things and putting people over. And talking of putting people over and Damage Control, Triple H very much put over Bayley in this, and I was shouting at my TV going, well, give her a title then, you know, like when he was kind of praising her and stuff like that, because she hasn't had what I think she deserves since she come back. And we all, you know, we'll go back to it, you know, the pandemic era and stuff like that, being the MVP pretty much. Her, speaking of MVP, the Street Profits, MVP, Hurt Business, excuse me, and also you know, Drew, we talk about these stars of that era, and Bayley is definitely up there as well. So I think she really does not deserve not just her flowers, a freaking title belt at some point as well. But a good match overall, man. I did enjoy this one. I think up until this point, I was very much on board with the show. Not that it massively dipped after this, but I did find myself getting a bit more distracted throughout the night. But let's just get into what we saw next. Of course, we saw Pat McAfee showing up, Indianapolis Colts hero, of course, in the promo package at the start. He does the voiceover, and then would show up later on, do a bit of commentary as well. That was pretty fun, and of course, it was for a pretty fun match. You know, not really any stakes to it, as we mentioned yesterday, other than potentially giving LA Knight this rub going forward. And I think it was exactly what needed to happen. It was exactly that, wasn't it? You know, LA Knight and John Cena going over, looking like megastars, and the Bloodline taking the loss with a lot of kind of interesting points. Again, we've been talking about the past few days of Jimmy Uso kind of, you know, acting like the de facto Roman replacement. And I loved the kind of visual of Paul Heyman explaining on the phone what was going on and stuff like that.
Hang on.
Roman.
You mean Paul Grayman?
Paul Grayman. Yeah. Oh my gosh. First of all, we mentioned last night that it kind of gone that way, but the commentators couldn't stop talking about it. It's like, I know that these inside
it is a talking point.
But yeah, but come on, like not that much. Let it go. Anyway, just like he's let his Just for Men go, like let it go. It was not. It was a talking point. That's it. Not a big one, but I did really enjoy that kind of presentation as far as the Bloodline goes. Again, it's been stale, and I think we'll wait for that next big thing, which is surely Reigns kind of now annoyed. This is, you know, we've planted the seeds for something that we both thought should happen. Reigns kind of kicking up a fuss about the way the Judgment Day is being run and stuff like that in his absence. So be interesting to see that. Again, talking about the press conference, I felt bad. There was so much attention on Cena because rarely do the press get to talk to Cena because not around these days as much, that it didn't shine as much on LA. But that's not the case with the actual presentation of the show. It was all about pretty much making LA look like the mega star that he claims to be and appears to be at this very moment in time as well. They were very much, I was saying last night, it's really interesting when I was watching it, it's really interesting how WWE use certain words and terms, and you know when they're fully on board with someone when they start acknowledging certain phrases, and they've done that so much of LA Knight lately as far as kind of putting him over, making him out to be the megastar that he's been claiming he is for quite a while now as well. If you haven't already, guys, check out our interview with Mr. LA Knight himself. We talk about the reason behind his name, the obvious comparisons that everybody was making a few months back, and how he got so good at promos as well. So if you haven't already, check that out on this very channel. We don't just do recap and reviews. We don't just do build-up shows and predictions. We also interview WWE superstars and other wrestlers from other companies as well. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. Check out more of our content. Rob, what did you think about this match here overall and the presentation, and I guess the kind of end goal that we both expected and thankfully got?
Do you know what? I generally thought this was it played out the kind of the way that we all expected it. You know, even from like just discussing last night. I know you were a little bit torn when we were talking about the predictions, and you was like, no, but is it because of this, like the bloodline it needs to affect? And obviously there's so much going on that a win or a loss can affect someone so drastically.
Mm.
I think the bigger person that it would have affected the most would be LA Knight. The fact that he got the win and he got the win alone, like making the pin, is something special. Was it Jimmy that took the pin? Or Solo? I think it was Jimmy, right?
Yeah, I can't quite remember now. Yeah.
I believe it was Jimmy. Yeah. But I think if it was Jimmy, which I think it was, then that also then ties into you're not the tribal chief. Like there's something there, so that plants something for that. Yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. The fact that they couldn't get the hot tag and things like that, it was so good. The thing that really stood out for me, though, obviously, the chants every time LA Knight literally moved was amazing. I absolutely love it. But when he had Solo and Jimmy, and then he was doing a punch to one, then a punch to the other, then a punch to one, and punch to the other, it kind of made me feel like, how Dusty used to do the punch, and then he'd do like the bionic elbow.
Yeah.
We didn't get the elbow, but we got everything else. I was just like, this, if you want to go back and look at like stars and go, how over is this person? This is one of them moments. Like, and where the fact that we get to live it again. The same thing with Daniel Bryan. I think we were a lot younger with like Rock, Austin. Kind of grew up watching it with Cena, but it was a different kind of thing. But with LA Knight, man, it's incredible. So I'm so happy. And then he raised Cena's hand at the end. Loved that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny, wasn't it? Him kind of holding back and whatever. It looked like, because we talked last night about the potential about them going against each other. Andy, of course, friend of the channel, joined us for the build-up and said, could they go against each other? And like it looked for a split second like, hold on a minute, what is going on here? But then it turned out to be kind of just a respect thing between LA Knight, showing it towards Mr. Cena himself as well. But yeah, they kept talking about on the press conference how they're undefeated now and they could go for the titles or whatever else. But I don't think that's where we're going. I think if anything, John Cena's probably going after Solo. Or maybe moving on to something else while we still got him. It's a good time to see it. And you mentioned there, like growing up with these different eras and different people kind of being on top. I do think it's going to be interesting to kind of look back in a few years' time, depending on what path they take with LA Knight, to see a night like last night, as you said, to see how over someone is. Again, if you get time, guys, check out our build-up show again. I know it's about previewing the show we're talking about, but we also go on these little tangents and talk about the wider picture as well. We did have a real great discussion with four of us talking about LA Knight and where we could see him going in the future. Does he go after a main title? Does he go after a kind of mid-card title? What does he do at Survivor Series? Should he even be in the Royal Rumble match? As far as carefully booking this and getting the most out of it. And of course, all the moving parts that come around that. What does that mean for Roman? You can't just do this for the sake of it and mess up things for, Gunther. What about the other guys going for the IC, So it was a really, really interesting conversation. So I encourage you guys to check that one out as well. Let's now move into our next segment we see. We touched on it earlier on, of course. We see the Judgment Day kind of have a bit of a bad night. It starts out really bad. And Damian Priest wants to make sure it ends a little bit better, but the rest of the Judgment Day are fearful that it could end up backfiring and then did even worse. So Mammy takes control here, as she has done so much lately, and takes the briefcase. Priest listens. It looks like it might be a double bluff and we might actually see something happen. But I think they played off of what you said and what I think everybody this week started to slowly cotton on to, in that it could be a perfect example for him to cash in, seeing that we have a last man standing match and we have the whole thing with the back with Seth Rollins. We don't get that. And I'll be honest, Rob, it does leave me with a bit of a sour taste in my mouth as far as what we saw close out the show. Now, it was a fantastic match. A great example of a last man standing match. Nakamura looks like a flipping star. But what frustrates me with it is that if we weren't going to be giving it to Mr. Money in the Bank or Senor Money in the Bank, then we could have done something different and Nakamura could have won the title. And again, with the press conference last night, Triple H said how I was saying the same thing. I was like, give him a belt then. If he's so good, give him a belt. He is doing incredible work at the moment and he is looking like Nakamura of old. But is this another, Cesaro scenario where we think, this could be it. And then eventually it doesn't come to fruition and Nakamura leaves, So that's kind of what frustrates me at the moment. But again, long term, I don't know where they're going. So I've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. But the match itself, fantastic presentation of Nakamura. Again, really good despite him not winning. And that moment of Seth at the end just kind of, I mean, they did well, don't get me wrong, to go, look, there's no cashing, because Seth straight away was like, I'm up. And it's like, you don't do that if it was clear. But then it kind of made me go, we ended on a good match, which I guess is all you really want from a wrestling show. The basic, at least, that's what it's all about. But at the same time, I'm looking for these moments, and I felt like it was kind of very heavy in moments in the early side of the show rather than the end of it. And the argument could be, yes, it's because we need to put kind of a shine on this world title. As I've been saying for months, it should never have opened that show on its when it had the tournament final. It should have been the closer, and now the opportunity was there to not have Roman or that title, to finally make this the big deal it's supposed to be. And to their credit, they did that, but it's that lack of a moment. It feels a little bit like they shot themselves in the foot in that sense. But you seem to react quite shocked to my opinion there, Rob. So what's your thoughts on this one?
Look, I really enjoyed the match. If anyone that come off looking like they could go again, it's Nakamura. My issue is he's now eaten two losses.
Yeah.
At title matches, and then he had eaten 2 against AJ. Was it one or 2 against AJ? And when you think, how many more times do you have to eat a loss before you finally get? Because even though the match made him look really like Japanese strong style and dominant, and like he's out, just basically out for blood, which is great. If you're going to do that, at some point you have to give him the title. Otherwise, he's done all that stuff,
and we won't believe it next time.
Yeah, because then you build yourself up into the situation where it's a Roman Reigns, a Brock Lesnar, a Gunther. Like, you start making the title credible, great. But then you can't just be beaten by Dominic Mysterio. Do you know what I mean? Like, it has to be a big name. Like, it has to have a bigger impact. And I don't know. I just, if Nakamura goes again, do we go, oh, well, he's losing? Like, is it another Cesaro? Is it another thing with Bray Wyatt? Every time he'd have an amazing feud, and I love Bray. Every time he had an amazing feud, we would say, oh, well, when he gets in, he's losing. Because that's the way they booked him. And I hate that they've done that. Don't do this with Nakamura. If you trust and believe in him that he's going to be the star that you want,
let him be.
You do it now. Like, I know we can't get it for everyone, but there's certain people,
So where do you think it is going then for both of those? Where's Seth going with the title picture? And where is Nakamura? Is Nakamura leaving this feud now?
I mean, I hope not, but what more can
unless he wins it, does it really matter? So
I mean, he's now done a last man standing, and the thing is, his promo was so good. Like, the whole promo package, by the way, was amazing. Nakamura doing the count, and then as Steph was getting up, whacking him, continuing the count, like he was going to get into the 10. The whole thing was amazing. Normally, I'd be like, oh, well, this is the point where the babyface, that's that babyface moment of, I overcome the odds.
Yeah.
Didn't need it. Nakamura should have won last night.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. The thing it did was it made Nakamura look somewhat strong, but it made Seth look like an absolute beast and survivor. Like, okay, cool. Did we need that for Seth again? Like, no. I don't know, man. Like,
that's my thing.
It depends where we go in the future with it, and it felt like the Money in the Bank could kind of shake things up there. Maybe it is a Gunther thing in a few months' time. It's a really tough one to pick. Maybe Raw will give us that kind of idea. In just a few hours. It's just over a day away, of course. So stick with us on this channel, and we'll debate that intently as well. So
I just think if it was someone else that hadn't been a champion before, you wouldn't know what to expect from them as a champion, like as a fighting champion. Do you know what I mean? So like when it was Cena and he done like the open challenge for the US title, that was like, okay, he can win, but he's going to bring people out. Like, he done it with Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Cesaro. I think he done one with AJ. Like, all the matches were so good. And even though the result was he retained the title, it made the other person look like a megastar. Now, the same thing's happened here. Nakamura's looked like a megastar, but the problem was he should have won the title. Because for me, now Seth has done that. Is like, well, you can't beat me. You can't beat me in an all match.
Exactly. What else? So you made him look so strong. Like Nakamura just can't. He can't beat him now. Because again, it was so much in this match that if Seth gets through that, because in some ways, the argument is made Nakamura look strong. In some ways, it kind of makes him look weak because it's like you still couldn't beat him. So it's a tough one.
And I think what annoys me the most, I think out of the whole entire thing, was the match was so good. It was very Nakamura dominant, right? Like he had so much offense, and Seth he got the shine, he got the big rub of building up, and then he hit his moment and dropped down again. The whole build, everything was good about the match. What annoyed me was the Falcon Arrow through a table was the thing that stopped Nakamura getting up. Yet Seth Rollins went through all that and was still able to get up.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, it's a fantastic spot. I think it looked great, but then also I think did Nakamura get up and just kind of wobble?
He got up
down?
and then fell back down again. Like surely that should have been Seth because
like
not
once.
much had been done to Nakamura.
Like yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Seth looked too strong at the end after what he did.
And
I think that was to stop us from thinking there was going to be a cash in, but it come to the detriment of kind of the two guys involved in the match.
It felt like to me, you know, when you get a WWE game and you really like one person, so you turn all their attributes up to top, so they just can't be beaten. It seemed like last night they turned Seth Rollins' tributes up to 100.
Yeah,
and
they gave Nakamura all the finishers, but they were weak. You know,
like it just. And I hate that they're able to do that at times because, you know, when you think, okay, both guys look strong, but Seth come out looking stronger because he took more damage and still won. Yeah. So,
you know, ridiculous amount as well. There's some great spots in this. It was a great match. Yeah. But I don't know, psychology-wise, I'm not sure if it was the best decision. What are some of your favourite spots, though? I mean, the visual, again, and the Falcon Arrow was great. They use that kind of proppy area with the kind of almost tables, and Seth bounced off of that a few times as well. Yep. We had Nakamura with a red mist, which was a cool visual as well. And Nakamura just destroyed him for the most part. And we also saw the ring padding on the outside get pulled up as well. So what are some of your favourite kind of points for this match?
Yeah, the ones basically you mentioned, there was like little, is it nuances? Is that the word?
Yeah.
That they kind of done. And it just shows how their mind works when it comes to, we're in the last man standing. I can't get to my feet, but I'm on the ring.
I love that. I love that.
Those little things to me, I'm like, I love it. And I think...
Because I genuinely was like, they're going to count it here. And it almost felt not worthy of it. It was too much of a shock. And I was like, I want Nakamura to win, but maybe in another way. So I was like, And then the fact he rolled out, I was like, very clever.
Things like that, I really enjoy it. My biggest, and I think I've said it before, my biggest pet peeve when it comes to these sort of things, the 10 count, a last man standing, any of that, why does every single wrestler just hop to their feet on 9, almost at 10? Like, what is that? I understand the psychology and it's the build, but let them try and get up and stumble. And then when it gets to 10, they just stand up.
Too many 9s, 8s and 9s.
It's too many.
They do start quite a lot with like a 4 and a 6 and 7 and whatever, but you spend most of the match is getting up on 9, and it's too much.
I mean, like Shawn Michaels was amazing at that sort of stuff when it comes to a 10 count, and I appreciate the work that they put in, but I think it's too done now. If Seth's starting to get to 9, and you see him at the ringside, you're like, he's going to roll out. But when you don't stop doing that, because then it kind of, if you're a big wrestling fan, you can go, well, that's going to happen. And you start calling
it's harder to do it because it's not the same as a pinfall, but it needs to feel like a forced finish at times. You know, like a bit more. There's a few, and I think things like Seth rolling out was a great example of how you can do it. I
mean, he rolled off the side as well, wasn't he? He was on the stage bit, and he got to 9, and he rolled off onto that, and I was like, great, because he rolled off, and he was trying to get away from Nakamura. Yeah. So little things like that, and the fact that they're rolling, but they're running away, but it's to make sure they're still up. I love that. All that stuff was great. Visually, I really enjoyed it. But the moment of the red mist from Nakamura, and it being all over, and Seth going through a table at the same time, great. Because he just shoved him, like he just didn't care. He gave him the red mist and pushed him over. And I was like, amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
To me, if we were booking it and it was the other way, I would have done that, but that would have been my finish. That's how it should have been, a red mist. Yeah, because everyone would have been so irritated, and it would have been like he physically couldn't win any other way, so we had to use red mist. And then that puts Seth over as...
Yeah, because even then they could have done the whole, like, because people use things to climb back up, and he could have been desperately trying to reach for the turnbuckle, but he couldn't see it. It was like, he can't get up.
Because of the
could
mist.
At least, yeah,
I mean,
and they could have established something that he kept using to lift himself up, even if it was literally a crutch, you know, like, and then he can't find this crutch, you know, like,
yeah.
Oh man, that would have been a good moment.
And what annoys me as well is we'd already had mist that night from Asuka, and what happened to Charlotte? Yeah. They had to pour water in her eyes so she could see again. We see them doing medical.
And Seth got it way worse than Charlotte did as well.
Yeah, so. And then right at the end, Seth was just like, "Oh, spit in my face. I'll get up in a minute. I'll get up at 9."
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah, like the visual of him kind of selling it and like being kind of like, because it was red mist as well. It looked great, but when he was victorious with the red mist, it did make you go, "Oh, okay." You know, like him with the title and all that, being way too fresh at the end of that match. I felt again, I think it was to draw us away from false hopes of a cash in. But I think it was just damaging. But it's a tough one because again, it was a really, really enjoyable match, and it did some really good things as far as presentation wise. But I guess it's one of those where we have to go in the benefit of doubt, looking forward for the big picture and hope that it's for good reason. But overall, again, I did really enjoy the match, and credit to the performers themselves. I think they did.
It was great.
Really
like the match itself was really good.
Yeah,
you know, and the finish, I didn't enjoy the finish. I just think you've been through all that, and then a one Falcon Arrow for a table is...
Last Man Standing matches are hard, aren't they? You know, I think Lucas has said on his channel before, like, he's just not a fan of them, you know, and they are kind of one of those things that are tough to kind of come up with something creative and new, like we said, and I think they did that really well, but it did fall into the same old pitfalls at the same time that this match type does bring up. So a bit of an unfortunate one there, but still a very enjoyable match and a very enjoyable show overall. I did think it was a good PLE. We mentioned last night, you know, what do they do? Do they add another match? Do they have a surprise? Do they have
well, the surprise was Pat
banger
McAfee.
After banger. Sorry?
I said, well, the surprise was Pat McAfee.
And Carlito.
And Carlito,
to be fair. So and again, the Judgment Day thing is going to be interesting going forward.
Don't forget the Pizza Hut promo, which how is Rey Mysterio always in sponsored match?
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Something in his contract, I guess.
But, and when you're watching the replays, that car noise every time there was a replay. Oh my day! Why?
I enjoyed it at first.
No, I didn't enjoy it at all. Maybe the first time I was like, "Oh, that's good."
That's pretty cool.
I was like, "Oh, stop that!"
Yeah.
Man, it was so annoying. I was like, because I was washing up at one point and I had my laptop, right?
Yeah.
And I was washing up, so I was kind of looking to the like up where I was doing, and then I heard a replay. I was like, "Oh, I'll watch this bit then," because the car noise went off.
It must have been, yeah.
Like there was a moment, you know, when you think, "Oh,
that's good." That's a little indicator. Look at the screen at least.
Nice little pun.
Yeah. Hey, another example of WWE overdoing something. Hey, I don't want to be too harsh on them. They did give us a very good show overall with 5 really enjoyable matches, of course, to varying degrees, but overall still all very enjoyable and a good PLE in the end. Really enjoyed talking wrestling with you, Rob, once again. Of course, we are the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, and we are now not just on YouTube, we are also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you want to get audio-only versions of this podcast, or you know someone that listens to audio-only podcasts and isn't really a fan of looking at us on the screen, you can direct them, of course, to our Spotify feed and our Apple podcast feed. And I'll be honest, guys, even if you're not going to listen there, you're going to carry on with YouTube, please go and just give us a little bit of a 5-star review. That'd be nice and help us get boosted up in the rankings and spotted within the wrestling podcast field over there as well. But on this side of things, YouTube, if you do like seeing it visually, we'd encourage you to press subscribe and stick with us as well. Not only do we have our podcast, but of course, as I mentioned throughout the stream, we have some fantastic interviews, if I do say so myself, on this channel with WWE superstars such as Santos Escobar, Rhea Ripley, Damian Priest, Finn Balor. You know, we've chatted to a lot of guys. We've been very fortunate to have these opportunities, and we're looking forward to bringing you more content like that in the coming weeks and months as well. So the best way to find out about that, of course, is sticking right here on the channel, press and subscribe, and linging that bell for notifications. But anyway, Rob, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'll leave you on a thought to ponder, and a bit of a shocking kind of thing. So Bayley has stepped into the ring in 2023 57 times. Out of those 57 matches, she's only secured 5 victories, which means her overall win percentage is just 8.8%.
No way. That is mad. That is mad. It's like the thing last night on the build-up when we were talking about Cena. Hasn't won a PLE match since it weren't called PLEs.
2017, 2018?
Yeah, like in America at least it's 2017.
In America, yeah.
On a big stage at least is Super Showdown, which is mad because now we're about to go back to Australia for Chamber, of course. So yeah, going to be an exciting few months coming up. We are going to be talking all about Crown Jewel very soon. They announced it officially last night. We will be talking Crown Jewel on this channel, and as you'll know, we like to go big for Crown Jewel because it is at a more reasonable time for us. So we'll hopefully be coming at you with the whole shebang. We're going to have predictions and preview. We're going to have our build-up show. Hopefully a watch it on and an instant reaction and a recap and review. It'd be fantastic if we can hit all the notes here on this channel as well. Speaking of instant reactions, we like to go live on them if they're a reasonable time, number one, or if something massive happens. And I quickly want to mention before we get out of here, apparently today, a year ago, is when we saw Bray Wyatt's return. I would encourage you to go back and watch our instant reaction to that. Myself and Rob, so excited. And this just shows, again, it's a bittersweet thing to talk about, of course, with Bray passing away. But just want to kind of shine a light on the man's career once again and just how incredible he was at making wrestling fans feel. That's ultimately what you want. I said earlier on, it's about the matches, but it's also about these big moments. And I think that's one of my favorites in recent years. So I'd encourage you to go back and watch that also. And of course, if you do want to kind of continue with that theme of talking about the legacy of the great man himself, go back and watch our tribute show to him on this very channel as well. It feels a bit odd bringing it down here for a little bit of a downer, but hopefully people don't see it that way. It's I just want to draw attention to the fact that, you know, a year ago today, it is again bittersweet that we saw this incredible moment, and we go into it deeper on that tribute show as well, just as far as kind of what were the plans, and at least he got that moment and that kind of thing as well. But you know, it's what being a wrestling fan is all about.
Do you know what? I remember, obviously it was only last year, but you literally texted me and you was like, I'm going live. And I was like, I'm down. So so I was like, all right, cool.
To talk about,
And I watched it back today, that Bray Wyatt stuff, because obviously it's a talking point. And just the enjoyment on our faces, Bray's back, how they've done this, what they're doing, and just the whole spectacle about it. And man, I'm not going to swear, but I loved it. You know, just what a moment. And obviously, we know Bray's no longer with us. And you're right, it's a bittersweet because if he was, it would have been like, oh, is he doing something on this day because that was his debut? Like that's that mindset, you know, and things like that.
All those little kind of hints and things that they used to give. It's
you know, like, oh man, it's just an incredible mind for the business, and you know, such a big loss. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, it does have to be brought down to, you know, it's not like we like to bring the pod down, but you know, it has to be spoken about. But yeah, so missed, man. Like so much potential.
You know, it's a sad thing as it is when you go for any kind of loss, whether it's a personal one within your own kind of circle of loved ones. But you know, it's all about remembering them and kind of you know, dealing with it in that way, trying to kind of keep their memory alive. And I think what an incredible set of memories Bray Wyatt's left us with.
Have you? I mean, I don't know how much is correct. Obviously, we don't like to throw out dirt sheet rumors because we like to give facts. But have you seen that they want to do something with Uncle Howdy?
Yeah, I've heard that rumor as well. And again, we touched on it already, didn't we, in our tribute, as far as, you know, thoughts on whether or not they should, but or what they could do. It will be interesting, and as I said on that one, whatever he wants to do, I'm sure it was Bo Dallas, but like. If he wants to do it, great. Just got to be careful not to do the Eddie Guerrero kind of over commercializing it and stuff like that, because that got a little bit insensitive at times. Exactly. As much as we all love Eddie, it got a bit tacky. So got to be careful with that. But if it's done right, hey, and if it's what make his family happy, then man, I'm all for it.
I'm all for it. Yeah,
if we can kind of somewhat continue that legacy, fantastic. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. And again, a little bit of a kind of heads up for other things we've got on this channel from the past and going forward as well. Thank you, Rob, for joining me, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure talking wrestling with you again. And we'll be back here, I'm sure, for a stream very, very soon. But the main thing coming up, of course, will be our content surrounding Crown Jewel. But we'll try our best to give you stuff in between that as well. I've been Scott. This one's been Rob. We've been at Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. And we'll see you on the next one.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.